So this tree has been established for a little while. This cherry, many years, but as you can see, we have down here, be a nice stable area, just with a little bit of movement. We have a ton of movement. It does not pass the wiggle test. So we're going to figure out exactly why. So doing RCX, we found the problem. This was buried way too deep. Down here should be way up here. Because of that, this whole buttress area has decayed in and out. There is no anchoring roots on this side, and that's why we have a lean directly that way. And we have movement. I mean, just barely touching it. Tons and tons of movement. So we're gonna have to guy this and fill this with pea gravel for now. Right, and this one right here, we got 3 down the row. This one's exhibiting the same thing, buried real deep. Found a chunk underneath the trunk, and just barely 2 fingers. Tons of movement. And obviously these are being, there's some constraint with the road and sidewalk, but these after 5+ years should be well anchored. We shouldn't have movement like this, and it's because they're planted too deep, and sections like right here, this flat spot, roots have either A, not developed, or decayed back. And finding this chunk sideways in here, I was probably, I mean, I can carve this out with the trunk right there. So hey, so some of you are probably wondering why I filled in those tree wells and might think it's a little hypocritical. Well, it's strategic hypocrisy. The reason is, if they're not filled in, nature will backfill them. Dirt will get in, leaves, all kinds of stuff, and it will be a third to half full with all kinds of stuff by the end of next season and have to be dug out again. Now, yeah, that's normal for most tree wells, right? The thing is, these trees have maybe 5 more years left. The basal area and the structural supporting roots are completely decayed, and they cannot grow back because of the damage that's done. They have just a few more years, and there's no sense in doing some Rolls-Royce treatment and putting, you know, $200, you know, into trees that are just going to be removed in the future anyway. So the pea gravel is a band-aid. It's a cheap band-aid, and it does serve purposes other than preventing the backfill from coming in. Pea gravel is round and light. Because of that, as a tree grows, it can displace it. It pushes it out of the way. If you use crushed angular gravel, it can embed in the tree and it interlocks, and it can actually apply a mild pressure around the trunk and basal area, which isn't good for the vascular system. So pea gravel has a much lower likelihood of doing that. Also, it's pretty pH neutral. If you get crushed gravel or any kind of gravel that's unwashed, it's usually high in lime, and you can temporarily buffer and spike pH levels for the soil, which might not always be a big issue for certain species, but you know, if it was a little baby pin oak, it wouldn't like that. It would make iron possibly a little less available for a season or two. Allows aeration, and you know, allows it to dry out a little better, because round things touching something, that sounds weird. Pretty much round surfaces apply less surface pressure than flat, you know, caked on stuff. So a bunch of pea gravel surrounding a tree has way less points of contact than soil, you know, packed in against it. Because of that, allows air to flow out, or gas exchange, and allows air to circulate somewhat and water to evaporate. It's going to keep that area drier. Also, a neat thing with that is, or a neat point to bring up, when I do that, I added transitional layer. I excavated a little bit deeper, about 1.5 inches, and then I took native soil and mixed it with the pea gravel and applied about 1.5 inches of pea gravel native soil mix. That allows a transitional layer and helps with water infiltration and percolation. So that reduces the likelihood of a perched water table and it actually messing up the hydrology, because if you have two soil profiles that are significantly different, they're not very compatible. So ends up they're not exchanging moisture very well. Take a sponge, put it on a plate of gravel. Sponge will stay wet and it'll evaporate and dry. Do it the other way, same thing. Take a sponge, put it on another sponge. They will equalize, but the lower sponge will actually end up becoming more saturated, like you want from, you know, the effects of gravity. The water will be pulled down. So that's why you want some transitional layer, if possible, to reduce the likelihood of a perched water table. In the end, I can go more and more into it, but the pea gravel is a band-aid. It's a temporary fix, and it's a $6 option for trees that are pretty much slated for removal in the next half decade anyways. So something I recommend, and it was the right thing to do in this situation. No sense in wasting clients' money. As arborists, we have to make the best decision for the trees, but when we know the trees are going to be nearing the end of their life very, very quickly, sometimes we can make a decision that's biased more towards the client's pocketbook, and that's what we did today. So yeah,